Jesus, you may have all this world. Give me Jesus. Will you join me? Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world. Give me Jesus. Little piano solo by my friend Stephen Disted. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You may have all this world with its troubles and cares, for of this I am sure. Give me Jesus. All right, let's stand together and sing a little up-tempo swing version of Amazing Grace. Make sure you make up harmonies and riff if you want to. Ready? Here we go. And amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. The Lord hath promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Amen, friends. Have a great day of business. Welcome, welcome.
Good morning, Laity of the Texas Annual Conference. It is my honor to be here with you and it is my honor to invite our bishop to welcome you to our 2025 session. We are amazed by our Bishop Harvey and so grateful for her leadership.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Janet. You've done an amazing job to get us to this point, and it's just great to walk alongside you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here this morning. You're the first ones to get started this morning, so I'm really excited about the day, and to begin with Laity makes it even better. You've heard me last night, and you're going to hear a lot from me about Laity and about the importance of the work that you do. And I'm very committed over these next 3 years to highlight this work. I really meant what I said last night. We are here because of the hard work that you have done to hold the corners of our tent down in places where the wind was blowing pretty hard. I'm just so excited to walk alongside you, and I tell your story a lot. I think now some of my friends and colleagues can tell some of our Texas Conference stories because I've told them so often about you and what you've done in these last 2.5 years, the churches that have begun, not because the conference did something, but because you did. Laity, who took charge, who one Thursday you take a vote, and on Sunday you're worshiping someplace else. And I'm just excited to be able to tell that story over and over again. And whether you're worshiping in an air-conditioned repair shop or an old produce stand, a Presbyterian church, we were destined to be there. I was going to say that last night, but I thought I might offend somebody. But what you have done has really been amazing, and I'm thankful for you. And this morning, to begin the day with you is even just a real special treat. You're going to be led great today. You're going to hear a lot. You're going to learn a lot from one another, and certainly from our guests that are here to teach us how to listen to each other. And you'll hear more about Claire Bowen and Celeste Eubanks here in a minute. But I'd like to offer a prayer as we begin. Gracious God, for these your servants we give thanks. We know that they sacrifice to be here, that they give up a lot of things to be here. Yet their commitment to you and your kingdom is one that we celebrate. And their commitment to the United Methodist Church and to the Texas Conference, how blessed we are. We just ask you to make your presence known in this room. In the quiet of this moment, we invite you to our table to be present, to take a seat beside us as we lead your church. Amen. I'll get it in a minute.
Thank you so much, Bishop Harvey, and thank you for being here. We have had, all of us, each of us, a call to be here, to serve Christ, to discern our leadership, and to take authority in our leadership. And we have the privilege of having leaders here to further develop that call in us and that leadership in us. I'd like to introduce Celeste Eubanks and Claire Bowen, who will be here to further guide us this morning. For those of us that have registered for the Laity Luncheon, they will be there with us, further facilitating, and then continuing to teach us and lead us as we develop and grow. Celeste Eubanks is director of the Candler Center for Christian Leadership and previously served in the Alabama West Florida Conference of the United Methodist Church as director of leadership, strategies, and most recently as director of connectional ministries. Claire Bowen, senior consultant at Candler School of Theology is both a human resources professional from the corporate world and an active, lifelong United Methodist layperson. And as you know, we'll be hearing more from them, but I invite them to speak to us this morning.
Good morning, laity of the Texas Annual Conference. I am Claire Bowen, a layperson myself, and I serve as the senior consultant for the Candler Center for Christian Leadership in Atlanta, Georgia.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Celeste Eubanks, and as mentioned, I serve as director at the Candler Center for Christian Leadership at Candler School of Theology at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia.
It is, thank you, thank you. It is early this morning. And maybe you had time for breakfast, but in case not, we're going to do a warm-up exercise that's about breakfast items. You will stand if you agree with this, and stay seated if you agree with that.
And again, if you missed the workout this morning, this will get your muscles going and your cardio going.
So, for example, the first choice will be coffee and tea. Let's try it. I prefer coffee. Stand. That, I prefer tea. Stay seated.
I would sit down if I was at a table.
We're a coffee tea group here. So thank you.
All right, so great. For the next one, because I am from originally Southeast Louisiana, I love me a good bowl of cheese grits. So it's gonna be grits or oatmeal. So if you love grits like me, stand up.
This?
If this is oatmeal, the grits, and that, stay seated if you like oatmeal. Thank you. You may be seated. Thanks for my grits lovers.
Okay, now for our last choice. Please choose between two ways to wake up. An alarm or no alarm. So this, I set an alarm. Stand.
We're still in the workforce.
That,
gotta set an alarm.
That, I use no alarm. Yay for retirement sometimes. Oh, thank you for participating. Look around the room at how we have different preferences on very simple topics. Similarly, choices can get more challenging and complicated in our relationships, in our work, and in our world. And that's what we're here to do today, is to learn a tool. Now, the authors of this book would hear me say, you're gonna learn a skill, and they say, oh no, Claire, can you say tool? And I said, yes, I can say tool. So we're here today to learn a tool to discuss the more difficult subjects.
So Claire and I have both read a transformative book entitled 3 Practices for Crossing the Difference Divide by Jim Henderson and Jim Hancock. So raise your hand if by chance you've had the opportunity to read this book as well. Okay,
Yay.
we've got a few folks there.
Yes.
Now, some of you have actually gone a step farther with the book and have become certified as 3 Practices referees. So please stand if you are certified as a referee. All right, we've got some there. Those who stood will assist us in using the 3 Practices circles tomorrow, and we thank you all for your getting certified. We all seek tools for meaningful dialogue, and some of you might become interested in this practice and pursue certification yourselves. And that actually is our hope, so that you can utilize this tool in your congregations and your organizations. So here is the website for being certified as a 3 Practice referee. And if you do have that desire, feel free to catch Claire or I sometime during our time here together, and we can give you more information on that.
Why is this book and the three practices tool important. We live in a polarized culture, and our churches are not immune. As leaders in this room, would you not agree? We need tools to find common ground, understand each other, and appreciate our differences. I was inspired last night from Bishop Harvey's Episcopal address. If we're to open doors, see those who are hurting, we also must have tools for healthy dialogue with our neighbors. This book introduces three practices to foster healthy dialogue. Practice number 1, I'll be unusually interested in others. In other words, this means after listening to you, I'll ask clarifying questions, digging deeper because I'm genuinely curious in what you have to say. Practice number 2, I'll stay in the room with difference. In other words, I'll remain respectfully present with you, even if I disagree or even don't like what you say. I won't correct you, debate you, or try to change your mind. And practice number 3, this is my own pastor, Bill Britt's favorite. I'll stop comparing my best with your worst. In other words, I'll remember that on our best days or our worst days, I'm honestly no better or worse than you.
We find this tool to be simple yet powerful, gracious yet humbling, and it allows conversations to be courteous, kind, respectful, and to many, it reflects Christian behavior. It levels the playing field for all participants, regardless of personality trait, race, gender, leadership status, or education level. 3 years ago, the first United Methodist pastor who read this book put it down and called the mayor's office. He asked for a partnership to hold a 3-practice circles in his church to help heal the cultural divide in their city. The first night, over 100 people attended. And today, those circles are still going strong. They used a structure called the fishbowl, which is what the picture you see on the screen. You have an inner circle actively engaging with an outer circle observing. And this is the way that we will practice your circles on tomorrow.
We believe this is a tool for laity, as well as pastors, and that we need it in the United Methodist Church. Now, I know you've noticed or even been in the trenches through our recent time of conflict. We saw things differently in our churches, and we tried to discuss it. There were times we did those discussions well, and frankly, times we know we could have done it better. Conflict is not over. It's never over. But maybe next time we can have better tools for those discussions. Tomorrow we will use this tool to allow us to have productive discussions around some chosen questions, which in 3 practices language we call the framing questions. What is a framing question? It's a carefully worded question or 2 questions, and you can choose. A question which invites discussion, and a question that is seeking clarity, focus, and understanding. Your bishop has been actively involved in choosing the framing questions we will use tomorrow, and has asked that the data generated during the circles be collected with no names attached. Your ideas are important for the desired future of this conference, and your ideas help your conference leadership in their work.
So we'd now like to show you a 90-second video created by the authors of this book that further explains 3 practice circles.
3 practice circles begin with a framing question and a volunteer who takes up to 2 minutes to answer.
This is our framing question tonight. With liberty and justice for all, how are we
How has
doing?
systemic racism affected persons?
Who are they to you, and what are you afraid they'd do if they thought they could get away with it?
I'll start.
With much trepidation, I'll go first.
I'll do my best. You got 2 minutes.
Rob, you have 2 minutes to share your statement.
When the volunteer finishes, anyone may ask a clarifying question, beginning with the words, "I'd be curious to know."
I'd be curious to know.
Bob, I'd be curious to know.
I'd be curious to know.
No one has to speak. We don't call on people or take polls or go around the circle. We end by thanking others for something they said, or the way they said it, or simply for showing up.
I want to say thanks to Vic. I think you brought up a lot of good points, and I appreciated your last question.
I want to say thank you to Helen for giving voice to mourning.
I also want to thank Fred and Pejman and Matthew for their really measured responses to difficult questions.
I just want to thank you tonight for your questions. Were so clear.
I feel like everybody in politics doesn't care about, the 18, 19-year-olds of this world.
The goal in 3 practice circles is not agreement. Our goal is clarity. We help folks hear what their neighbors on the other side really mean. Getting clear about that helps us decide how we want to treat each other going forward, which we think in a democracy is time well spent.
So you likely noticed from the video that every question begins with, "I'd be curious to know." So why don't we practice saying that on the count of 3? 1, 2, 3. I'd be curious to know. It's a beautiful sound. So why use this beginning phrase? Well, we're all quick and skilled at giving our opinion. Most of us can overfunction in wanting to make our point. That does not connect you to people. Digging deeper with a leading question like, "I'd be curious to know," accomplishes that. It's listening 101, y'all. Now, as you go forward in the next 24 hours, try practicing using "I'd be curious to know." Try it at least twice in interactions you have with people. Give someone a high five if you hear them saying, "I'd be curious to know." Or you might hear in the hallways, "Estoy curiosa de saber más." Catch people being curious.
Celeste, let me try this with you. I'd be curious to hear more about cheese grits eating in Louisiana.
Claire, we don't have enough time for my love of cheese grits to be shared with you.
I do want to say and add that the more Celeste and I have been involved with 3 practices, the more we know these can be spiritual practices, contemplative practices. Much of contemplation is paying attention to the Holy Spirit and listening. Paying attention to and listening to the belovedness of others who are created in the image of God, and holding space for us to work alongside the Holy Spirit. So when the 3 practices are practiced with this awareness, it becomes and is a holy and sacred interaction.
Thank you, Claire. This morning was all about the why. But be back tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp to learn about the how and what this will look like as you join in a circle, either as a participant or an observer. We'll prepare you to actively learn a new tool called 3 practice circles. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Janet. We can probably sit it on round table only.
Thank you so much, Celeste and Claire. We are all lay servants. We have a whole program that is called Lay Servant Ministries, and I would like our Lay Servant Ministries directors that have planned to introduce it to come forward at this time. They have a word for you about programmatic opportunities in our ongoing growth. Dr. Karen Jones is here with us.
Good morning. I am Karen Jones, the Northwest District Director of Lay Servant Ministries. Thank you. Yeah. I've come to speak with you for a few minutes this morning about Lay Servant Ministries. Now, I could bore you with this historic information about how John Wesley used laity, called exhorters, to spread the gospel and to administer to the work of the newly budding United Methodist Church as early as 1771. But I won't. I could bore you with a list of names of lay servant ministers who have served generation after generation preaching, teaching, doing community outreach ministries, administering to the sick and the needy. But I won't. I could bore you with the particulars of lay servant ministries, how we have 36 classes available for equipping laity to reach out in their various settings to touch the community, fulfilling our commission of making disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. But I won't. So this is what I do want to tell you this morning. Historically, it has been shown that hesitation oftentimes has advantages. In battle, patience often creates strategic advantages. In friendships, waiting and patience builds trust and unity. In historic institutions like the United Methodist Church, time and patience has established us with a reputation and a stability known by the world. But laity, the times, they are a-changin'. Being patient, learning to wait, is no longer an effective strategy. Waiting, as you know, there's a new saying for it. It's called, if you snooze, you lose. Waiting is not what is effective now in our times. As a matter of fact, if we wait, we miss the boat. Laity, you have been patiently waiting, and I thank you for that. But now it is time for us to rise up out of the pews, worship passionately, live extravagantly, and witness boldly. It is your time to revitalize the United Methodist Church. Thank you. Now, I'm not advocating some impetuous storming of our communities with placards and idle talk. I'm advocating for you as laity to engage in educating and equipping yourselves for effective outreach in the communities where your churches are located. I'm saying take advantage of the Lay Servant Ministry program, a United Methodist program that has equipped laity to make disciples for Jesus Christ since the very first charge conferences in the Americas. Wesley commissioned lay exhorters to go countryside by countryside, supporting the love and knowledge of Christ in every community. You are called, and you are given gifts for the task. Lay Servant Ministries will help you polish those skills and bolster your timid spirit to step outside the doors of your churches for Jesus Christ. Laity, you are the voice of the future. You are Jesus' hands and feet. You are our Lord's extravagant love and bold witness to the world. Please take advantage of the doors God is opening for you to rise up from the safety of the pew and step into your communities. Jesus is ready and waiting for partners outside the doors of the church. Lay servants and lay servant ministry and Jesus Christ. We're a team together. So let's get together and get busy for the work of Christ in the world. Thank you.
We'll be emphasizing more the importance of the Lay Servant Ministries program within our conference and within the United Methodist Church in general. I want to thank you all for taking the time to prepare to be here. We have a lot in our guidebook to consider. There's lots to pre-read. I thank you for those of you that attended the pre-conference webinars, those of you that took part in the Laity orientation session. And there are a couple of things that I just want to remind each of you now, especially those that are lay delegates, but also our lay guests as well. One of the things that our specific role is to partner with our clergy leadership to be connectional, to be a resource, and to be a communicator. And I'm going to say this multiple times. I want you to make sure that you've met someone new as a result of being at conference. As Claire and Celeste suggested, be unusually curious. And when you go home, continue that practice of meeting someone new, asking who's not at the table, inviting. So we have work before us here that's important work of the United Methodist Church. We also have important work to relay back to our churches. So we have before us in the business section later on some amendments to our Constitution. So you've done your pre-work, you've read all of that, but we're going to go over it one more time. We're going to go over what those amendments are and what our voting process is going to be. And then after the conference, we will vote, of course, but then after the conference, I want you to be prepared to relay all that you have seen and learned and be able to communicate back to your communities what we've done here. And so we have ready to come talk John Escovel. We're so grateful for. He is previous lay leader for this conference and also delegate to the General Conference that prepared these amendments. John, thank you.
Well, thank you all so very much. It was great waking up March 1st and not thinking, annual conference is next week. So I'm so much more relaxed now before you. If we'd pull up the slide pack for the constitutional amendments, please. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So slide 1, please. I guess that is organized differently. So go back to the previous slide. We're going to learn along the way. We're going to be flexible. So first of all, thank you. As Janet mentioned, Eddie Irwin and I served as lay delegates to the 2020-2024 General Conference. We'll give a brief presentation, answer questions regarding the constitutional amendments that you will be asked upon to vote later today. The 4 amendments to the Constitution that you will be voting on, as you can see on the screen: ballot number 1 on reorganization, ballot number 2, inclusiveness in the church, ballot 3, racial justice, ballot 4, educational requirements for clergy members. I'll discuss ballot number 1, regionalization, and Eddie will discuss the other three. But first, some background. The Constitution of the United Methodist Church is the foundational section of the Book of Discipline, which outlines the church's core principles, its structures, its governance, and doctrine. It identifies our mission and polity of the church. Next slide, please.
The United Methodist Book of Discipline outlines the
I'm
law,
not sure
doctrine,
where
administration,
that,
organizational work, and
if you could
procedures
cut
of the denomination.
Okay. If we can get to the next slide without the audio. Well, let me just continue. We'll learn. To amend the Constitution, a rigorous two-step process is required. This is designed to ensure broad consensus across our worldwide denomination. First, an amendment must be passed by 2/3 majority vote at General Conference, the denomination's highest legislative body, as you may know. The second step is approval by at least 2/3 of the aggregate total votes across the entire denomination. That is, across the entire world. Because of that, every single vote counts. Your individual vote counts as much as those, the millions across the world. So let's go ahead and dig in. I don't know whether we can update ballot number 1, regionalization. We've been blessed to have ministries, local churches, annual conferences throughout the world. There continues to be significant growth of the United Methodist Church, particularly outside of the U.S. If you've ever traveled outside the U.S., you initially become aware of the different language, different food, different denominations of money. But soon you become aware of different customs, experiences, traditions, understanding, and means of expression, as well as a multitude of differences that make a country unique. Jesus met people where they were. He understood their context and spoke to them with relevance to their daily lives. As disciples of Jesus Christ, I believe we too are called to do the same. That is, to meet people where they are, to be relevant in their lives. There it is. Regionalization allows United Methodists to best serve the unique worldwide communities, to meet people where they are, understand their context, and relevance to their lives. Okay, we do have the right. Regionalization was developed collaboratively by United Methodists across the globe. It was adopted by an overwhelming majority of the General Conference delegates. This particular amendment passed with 78% approval, surpassing the 2/3 vote needed in approving the Constitution. Drawing your attention to the shaded area of the slide, I believe on your left, as you know, we currently have 5 jurisdictional conferences in the U.S. We, of course, are a part of the South Central jurisdiction. There are also 5 central conferences for the churches and conferences outside of the U.S. As you can see, those jurisdiction and central conferences elect and assign bishops, determine boundaries of annual conferences in Episcopal areas, they support regional ministries, and they elect members of general agencies. If ballot 1 on realization secures the required number of votes worldwide for its passage, it would rename the central conferences to regional conferences, and it would create a U.S. regional conference. There would be legislative powers given to those regions to adapt certain portions of the Book of Discipline. Regionalization is intended to put all the regions, those in the U.S. and those around the world, on equal footing. As noted on the slide, regionalization creates equity across the church without privileging one region as a center and others as peripheries. Currently, Without regionalization, General Conference has the U.S. in the center with its legislative priorities because without a U.S. region, the General Conference is the only place for legislative activity for the United States. Without regionalization, the U.S. becomes that center of gravity at General Conference. You know, there are several reasons for that structure. Historically, the United Methodist Church was founded in the U.S. As a result, the church's constitutional structure, its governance and traditions were U.S.-centric. Also, until the last decade or so, U.S. delegates made up the majority of the voting members at General Conference. That is no longer true. We have perhaps a majority now of delegates at General Conference outside of the United States. Now, this structure may have served us well for a time. However, with substantial growth of the United Methodist Church outside of the U.S. and its unique mission fields, I believe it's time to reconsider our structure. I support approval of ballot number 1, implementing regionalization. With regionalization, all the regions, including the U.S., will be able to adapt certain portions of the Book of Discipline to be relevant to the mission field, to respond to their context, and support the unique characteristics of that region. At General Conference, all the regions will be on equal footing. Matters taken up at General Conference will be those that affect all the regions. Those matters unique to a region, such as those unique to the United States, would be taken up at the respective regional conference. As noted on the slide, regionalization will transform General Conference. At General Conference last year, I sat in the first row designated for the Texas Annual Conference. Directly in front of me was a delegation from an African Annual Conference. For a period of time, those delegates were polite, but somewhat disengaged when matters that were being discussed that were unique to the United States were being discussed, such as pension plans for U.S. clergy. They were disengaged because it did not affect them. But I tell you, when the agenda affected the entire church, they became actively engaged. They asked probing questions, they participated in the debate, they offered amendments to move the discussion forward. I still remember an African woman who offered an amendment to a resolution which was mired down in debate. I wasn't sure that the matter would move forward. Her amendment was acknowledged to be just that brilliant solution to move the matter forward. Regionalization will transform General Conference. I believe General Conference will then consist of matters of great importance and impact the entire denominations, with matters unique to the regions, such as the U.S., will be handled elsewhere. All will be actively engaged in the discussion and debate. General Conference will be more efficient, dealing with matters impacting the entire denomination, and it will be more effective. All activities engaged in discussion, all will be engaged in the discussion and the debate. Although under regionalization, some things will change, there are some things that will not change. The United Methodist beliefs are not changing. Under regionalization, a regional conference cannot create its own constitution or adopt any policies in violation of the Constitution contained in the General Book of Discipline. A regional conference cannot alter the doctrinal standards. The doctrinal standards are our theological principles that guide our teaching, preaching, and faith practices. It includes, among other things, the articles of religion, which contain our core Christian belief, such as the belief in the Trinity, the authority of Scripture, justification by faith, the sacraments, as well as our belief in the resurrection. In fact, these doctrinal standards cannot be revoked, altered, or ignored, according to paragraph 17 of the Constitution. A regional conference cannot alter our theological task. The theological task refers to our ongoing work of interpreting and living out our Christian faith in a way that is faithful, relevant, and responsive to both Scripture and the realities of the world. The Book of Discipline states that the theological task is the work of reflection on God's gracious action in our lives and in the world, as understood through Scripture, tradition, reason, and experience. You may recognize that as the Wesleyan Quadrilateral. A regional conference cannot alter the ministry of all Christians. The ministry of all Christians is a foundational belief that every baptized person is called to ministry, not just the clergy. The Book of Discipline calls it the ministry of the laity. We are called to worship God, grow in faith, serve others, bear witness, and work for justice and peace. A regional conference cannot alter the social principles. The social principles are a set of ethical teachings that express the church's official stance on a wide range of social, economic, political, and environmental issues. These principles are not church law, but are intended to guide members in faithful living and action. A regional conference can draft and publish its own regional book of discipline, hymnals, book of worship, and other liturgical resources. A regional conference can set requirements for ordination and licensed ministry with respect to the needs and resources. A regional conference can set standards for lay membership. Lay membership standards refer to the expectations and commitments for people who wish to become and remain a professing member of a local church. These standards reflect both a personal commitment to Christ as well as a communal responsibility to the church. Think of your membership vows to uphold the church with your prayers, presence, gift, service, and witness. A regional conference can develop practices around marriage ceremonies, funerals, and other rites that align with cultural contexts and laws in each country. A regional conference can reorganize their annual conferences, districts, or charge conferences to best serve their missional needs and convene their own judicial courts. A regional conference can work with annual conferences to ensure policies and practices align with the laws in each country. So that's a lot of information. Clearly, if you want to learn more, you can go to the Texas Annual website. Y si necesitas más información, aquí hay un QR code. Perdona mi Spanglish, pero esa cosa, no sé. Now, before I turn over to Eddie to discuss the other ballots, I'd like to reiterate my support for ballot number 1, dealing with regionalization, and I encourage you to vote to approve this ballot as well as all the other ballots under consideration. Thank you. Eddie?
Let me introduce Eddie Irwin. John, thank you so much. I just want to say that I am so deeply appreciative of our delegates and especially our lay delegates to the annual conference, the general conference. Eddie Irwin was going to talk about some of the other amendments. Eddie is also the director of our South Central jurisdiction. So thank you, Eddie.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Laity Irwin, and in addition to the duties with the South Central jurisdiction, I also have the pleasure of serving as Director of Student Ministries for Wildwood United Methodist Church in Magnolia, Texas. At the 2020 and 2024 General Conference, an amendment was passed for paragraph 4, article 4, that would add the words gender and ability to these paragraph and article of the Constitution. To the Constitution, categories that cannot be used to exclude membership in the United Methodist Church. Slide, please. It would read, the United Methodist Church is a part of the Church Universal, which is one body in Christ. The United Methodist Church acknowledges that all persons are of sacred worth, all persons without regard to race, gender, ability, color, national origin, status, or economic condition shall be eligible to attend its worship services, participate in its programs, and receive the sacraments upon baptism to be admitted as baptized members upon taking vows declaring the Christian faith, becoming professing members in any local church in the connection. In the United Methodist Church, no conference or other organizational unit of the church shall be structured to exclude any member or any constituent body of the church because of race, color, national origin, status, or economic condition. The amended portion of the Constitution adds gender and ability to the existing social categories that clergy in the United Methodist Church cannot use to discriminate against a potential member. Said another way, a pastor may not deny membership for the church because they are female or male or have a disability. A pastor cannot prevent someone from attending worship or participating in its programs because of gender or ability. It's not just about membership. For reference, in 2016, the General Conference approved adding gender to paragraph 4, Article 4, but the addition was not ratified or approved because the overall vote was 61%, which fell short of the 2/3 vote required. This is ballot number 2 for us. Janet is going to speak on ballot number 3 momentarily.
Ballot number 3 is critical. It's a section on racial justice, and it further emphasizes our responsibility to eradicate racism, white supremacy, colonialism that harms our church and our society. I'd like to read to you, if ratified, what that would say. The United Methodist Church proclaims that from God's goodness and love, God created all persons as God's unique and beloved children. Racism opposes God's law, goodness, and love, and diminishes the image of God in each person. Fueled by white privilege, white supremacy, and colonialism, the sin of racism has been a destructive scourge on the global society and throughout the history of the United Methodist Church. It continues to destroy our communities, harm persons, obstruct unity, and undermine God's work in this world. Racism must be eradicated. Therefore, the United Methodist Church commits to confronting and eliminating all forms of racism, racial inequity, colonialism, white privilege, and white supremacy in every facet of its life and in society at large. I'm going to skip over a good bit of the components here of our slides so that we can move on to the next one. I would like to say that what this does is it places our love in action, and that's who we are. It calls us to actively confront the racism or bias that we experience personally in our church and in society, and reflect on those and commit to do differently. And so I wasn't at the General Conference as my colleagues were, but I would definitely encourage each of us to ratify the good work of the General Conference. I'm going to hand it back over to Eddie.
Ballot number 4. Ballot number 4 is the constitutional amendment that amends paragraph 35, Article 4, but what is now paragraph 36 in our new and current Book of Discipline, which states who is eligible to elect clergy delegates to General Conference and to the Jurisdictional or Central Conference. The amendment was submitted by the United Methodist Board of Higher Education and Ministry and specifies the entity responsible for determining the educational requirements for licensed local pastors to participate in clergy delegate elections in the United States. Next slide, please. If ratified, paragraph 36, Article 4 would read as, the clergy elected to General Conference and the jurisdictional or central conferences shall be elected from the clergy members in full connection, and shall be elected by the clergy members of the annual conference or provisional annual conference who are deacons and elders in full connection, associate members, and those provisional members who have completed all of their educational requirements, and local pastors who have completed course of study or Master's of Divinity degree from a University Senate approved theological school or its equivalent as recognized in a central conference, and have served a minimum of 2 consecutive years under appointment immediately preceding the election. Note that it is not a degree requirement that this proposal would amend. The requirement of a Master's of Divinity degree is already in the Constitution. This amendment ensures those voting for clergy delegates have met the denominational standards for theological education. It does not expand or restrict voting access for licensed local pastors in central or regional conferences. Instead, it clarifies the meaning of an MDiv degree and specifies qualifying theological schools and their equivalents. The local pastors retain their right to elect clergy delegates to General Conference if they meet the following criteria. Educational requirements: they must either have completed a course of study or earned a Master's of Divinity degree from a University Senate-approved theological school or its equivalent as recognized in a central or regional conference. And 2, their service requirement: they must have served a minimum of 2 consecutive years under appointment immediately before election. This is ballot number 4.
Thank you, Eddie and John. Thank you for clarifying all of this. Our work is important here in all the ways. It is being mindful of the Holy Spirit, being careful with each other, and it is doing this kind of work, which involves reading, and voting and considering these constitutional amendments very carefully. I'm going to ask our conference secretary now, Trey Burns, to talk specifically about this voting process. These constitutional amendments are a little bit different than what we've been used to in the past. We are asked to ratify the work of the General Conference. Many of us may be used to tweaking things a little bit, asking for a little bit of something to be changed. At this point, it is an up or down vote. It is a vote to say yes or no to the amendment as it's been presented. So that's a little bit different for us. So Reverend Trey Burns, thank you.
Thank you, my St. Paul's table over there. As Janet said, my name is Trey Burns. I am the secretary of our annual conference. Part of that work is being the official go-between between the annual conference and the higher levels of the church hierarchy. And so in matters like this with constitutional amendments, it means I'm the one who certifies your vote and will send that off to the Council of Bishops for their canvassing work over the next few months. As Janet said, this vote is a little bit different. There's not a chance to amend any of these amendments. Just imagine if every conference were offering amendments to the amendments, and then you get this really messy thing where no one actually agrees on what we're ratifying, and so they are locked in terms of the content of these amendments. You do have a chance later today to discuss them and debate about them, pros and cons, but when it comes to the actual vote, it will be an up and down vote. If you've been to annual conference before or to any kind of similar legislative gathering, you might be used to taking votes by hand or by standing vote, maybe sometimes even just saying aye or nay as the presiding officer invites that. For the ratification of our constitutional amendments, we need very specific numbers. I have a form from the Office of the General Conference where I must put how many people voted yes and how many people voted no. And we also want those votes to be private, to be secret. As you have heard from John a little bit earlier, you are not voting as a body. You are voting as individual members of the United Methodist Church. Your votes will be tallied along with the votes of lay and clergy members of annual conferences all around the world, and so your vote is your vote. It is not being lumped together with the Texas Annual Conference and then being sent off. It is your own. And so our bishop, our clergy, our conference leadership group, our tellers have come up with a fantastic way of allowing us to vote on these in a streamlined way, but also in a way that keeps everything private and free from interference. If you have your conference schedule in front of you, either in guidebook or on page 13 of the conference booklet that you've received, if you look at the bottom of today's schedule, you'll see a break, and then hopefully at 3:30, if we haven't been running over at 3:30, a new portion of business. It starts with the Board of Ordained Ministry report, and then you'll see a starred item with the constitutional amendments under that. Just a quick note for any of you who have other things that you might need to take care of things at home or make calls. We're going to flip that schedule a little bit. The constitutional amendments will occur right after that break. So they will be the first thing at 3:30 when we return from that break. When you return from that break, you will find on the tables in the center of the room, there will be groups of 4 envelopes at the seats in the center portion of these tables. When it comes time to begin the voting process, Bishop Harvey will ask all of those who are entitled to vote to stand. For this room, that's very easy. If you are your congregation's delegate here or a district at-large delegate, if your tag is blue, you are entitled to vote. And so when she invites that, you are invited to stand. And then you can see here I didn't know we had that already. You can see everything inside of those pink lines will be the bar for this portion of our work. When you are invited to stand, our tellers will make their way through the room and hand every person 4 colored pieces of paper. Each piece of paper will be 1 ballot for one of the amendments that we have been discussing this morning. You can see there the color coding. Ballot 1 on regionalization will be yellow, ballot 2 on inclusiveness will be purple, ballot 3 on racial justice will be blue, and ballot 4 on educational requirements will be pink. We will handle each of these ballots one at a time. So Bishop Harvey will open ballot 1. You will have a chance to debate that according to our conference rules. And then she will call for a vote. And on that piece of paper, there is a simple question. On each of those, it says, I approve the ratification of the amendment on fill in the blank. And then there's under that just a spot for yes and a spot for no. And so you will put a mark on yes or no, however you feel led to vote in that moment. And then Bishop Harvey will invite you to place that ballot into the corresponding envelope, seal the envelope, and then place it on the table. And then we will move on to ballot 2, ballot 3, ballot 4, using the same process for each one. This gives us a chance to handle each ballot individually, making sure that there's space for conversation, making sure that there's less confusion about what we're acting on and what you're being asked to vote on, while streamlining it a little bit. We're not going to hand out ballot 1 and then collect ballot 1 and then hand out ballot 2 and collect ballot 2, because that would add a lot of time to the amendment ratification process. That's how we'll be handling this process here in the Texas Annual Conference. Once you have voted, our ballots will be collected by our tellers. They will take them and count them in batches. I will then receive the votes and total them up, and then send those off to the Council of Bishops for their canvassing process. Just a note, you have heard this if you've been coming to our pre-conference webinars. We will not announce the results of our votes. We don't want, the General Conference, this is a long-standing tradition, we don't want earlier voting conferences to influence the votes of later conferences. So we don't want, because we are a fairly early conference, we don't want to say the Texas Annual Conference overwhelmingly approved these amendments and then maybe have that affect what some of our later conferences do, since we don't all meet at the same time. So you won't hear what our results were, but do know that I will tally those and send those off as soon as I will do that this week so that it gets to where it needs to go. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much to this whole team. We do have some time, and we've been talking about a good bit with regard to these amendments. We want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions, no matter how simple it may seem. We have microphones here, and we encourage you to come forward to ask any questions you have about the amendments or the voting process. And we have one. Microphone number 3.
I'm Don House. I'm at A&M United Methodist Church in College Station. Got a question for John, just clarification. With regionalization, what happens to our 5 Episcopal areas within which we elect our own bishops within a jurisdiction and appoint them within our own jurisdiction? Could you clarify what happens?
Thank you, Don. As people may know, Don led the lay delegation to the General Conference. So I thank you for your service at General Conference. So we're moving forward, building a new organization structure, regionalization, while maintaining parts of the old, and we're not sure whether it will pass or not. So there are some ambiguities, Don, as you have mentioned. As I understand it, we still have the various jurisdictions and the authority that has been granted to those jurisdictions, such as election of bishops and things that you had mentioned. So my understanding is that will remain in place. Now, perhaps at future general conferences, that will be aligned differently. I don't know, but there are no changes currently with regard to the jurisdictions and their current roles and responsibilities. I hope that answered your question, Don.
Hi, I'm Allison Thummel from Christ Church in Sugar Land, Texas. Can I please get the slide that shows the one on gender and ability, the amendment? So my question, if we can get that up, would that be possible? So my question is, the very last sentence, why did they not include gender and ability at the very, very end?
Unfortunately, we don't know, and we can only imagine that it was just not seen. It was not a purposeful statement, and unfortunately, that's a tweak we really can't make at this point. Yes, thank you. At mic number 2.
I'm Terry Paller from Bryan Alexander. I have a question about the educational areas. Would this allow some very qualified people in parts of the world that don't have easy access to education, or is that covered in it?
Can you repeat your question for me again?
I'm concerned that people in areas that don't have easy access to education, would they not would it knock them out of being eligible to vote and to serve their areas?
So my understanding is that it does not change the requirements that are currently in place for those to vote. Okay. So, yep. Just clarifies pieces. So.
Yes, thank you.
My name is Nancy Vickers, and I'm from Bear Creek United Methodist Church here in Houston. I'd be curious to know, an example of the type of customization that a region could do to the Book of Discipline.
Much of that will be determined with greater clarity as we move forward. General Conference will have greater clarity on that. But currently, a region could amend the Book of Discipline regarding clergy qualifications, the lay membership. It can change some of the various forms of rituals that we have that are customized, that are unique, and speak to the context of the various regions. I don't know if you had a specific one in mind, but there's a multitude of things, and even as I said, there are a lot of things in the Book of Discipline that are very U.S.-centric, that talk about specific U.S. issues. Those will be taken out and put into a regional Book of Discipline. I think you may have another.
So who would be the judge of whether or not this customization fit within the overall umbrella of the Book of Discipline?
The General Conference will determine what can be amended and what cannot be amended. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of those things, such as our theological task, our beliefs, cannot be amended.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Simons from St. Mark's on Pecor. And my question to all of you is understanding that it's time for us to just ratify. We have no time for discussion or tweaking this word or that. Is it better to vote in favor of a not perfect but pretty good amendment and later we'll deal with the problems? Or is it better to vote no until we get the perfect wording?
Thank you, Jennifer, for asking that question. We do have time for discussion. We just can't tweak the language. And I'd just like to take the opportunity. I was not there, but I was watching and I saw the enthusiasm of our own delegates when they came back. If you remember from that time, the joy and the kinship and the love that came from that time, and this is the work that came from that. I am endorsing ratifying these myself. I'm willing to overlook the things that I would like to tweak. I don't want to speak for everyone. If anyone wants to, okay, John would.
To specifically answer your question, I would encourage you to vote yes, even if you see those imperfections. We will never, I don't think we'll ever get to perfection here on earth. And a legislative process is a messy process, but I would encourage you to vote in favor of all of these.
John brought it on home. Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Laity from the Southeast District, Beaumont, St. James, and I'm curious to know. You're asking us to do an election on these amendments, okay? And I understood that you didn't want to influence the Texas Annual Conference to influence any of the other conferences. But what I'm curious to know is when will the results of the election of the Texas conference be made public? Because I'm not in favor of a secret vote. I mean, I think any other election you have results that are readily available to those that voted. And I'm curious to know when those results would be available to us as delegates or as a conference.
I think, and I'm going to try to answer this, and thank you for boldly asking. I'm sorry. Oh, excellent. I was going to answer, but I'm going to let the expert.
Expert is too strong of a word, but thank you very much. So the current guidance from the Office of the General Conference is, which they do have a new Secretary of the General Conference. So the current guidance from that office is that those votes will be kept closed, secret, whatever you want to call it, until the canvassing. They have, to my knowledge, they have not said yet whether at that time we will announce individual conference votes. But I do see Bishop Harvey coming to a microphone over here, so I yield my time to Bishop Harvey.
And you were the expert. You answered that beautifully. But just to clarify, anytime we have taken a constitutional vote, and the last time we did constitutional votes, by the way, I was an officer in the Council of Bishops, so I got very familiar with the process. We have, I never say never, but hardly ever, release the actual votes from each annual conference. This is the aggregate vote of every United Methodist conference across the entire United Methodist Connection. So we will never know how the Texas conference voted. Our vote, your vote, is going to be added to somebody's in North Katanga in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and tallied. So we will not know how the Texas conference voted.
Okay, I'm curious to know. When will the aggregate vote be released?
The hope is the fall.
Okay.
And part of that is just kind of a, polity, United Methodist 101 here, is because the annual conferences are spread out over time, especially in the central conferences in Africa, the Philippines, and Europe. Those conferences happen much later than ours. So the hope is this fall, because we have a 2028 General Conference that we've got to prepare for. Hope that it is this fall. I have seen it take longer, but when those are aggregated and counted by the Council of Bishops, and just so you know, we don't get the votes from each conference. We just get numbers in the Council of Bishops. And that, as soon as we have that number, it will be made public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I apologize. I don't know how long you've been standing at mic 4. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, my name is Anna Karkbo. I am from First Methodist Houston. I'd like to know how many Senate-approved seminars are outside of the U.S., and how will that affect people who can't access these seminars?
You might have stumped us. I don't know. Eddie? Okay.
I don't believe there are any United University Senate-approved seminaries outside of the United States. The 13 that I'm aware of are here in the United States. So.
I sense you were concerned about our brothers and sisters outside of the United States. And I believe the equivalent degrees by the central conferences, those conferences outside of the United States, that would still be available, the equivalents as determined by the central conferences. So our brothers and sisters outside of the United States will still have access to theological training.
Thank you. Yes, number 3.
Hi, my name's Hayden Riley from A&M United Methodist. I am a second-degree delegate, so forgive my ignorance. But I would be curious to know what bearing ballot 2 would have on the ability of a church to be inclusive or not on the basis of sexual orientation.
Would you restate your question?
Would ballot 2, would a church, I know that we had a vote last year about the wording in the social, basically forgive me, so social discipline regarding inclusivity on the basis of sexual orientation, that is no longer, we have wording to correct that. I'm just wondering if ballot 2, I noticed that was excluded from the classes that we could, that we need to include.
Yes, I'm not sure what your question is.
Just so we need to include, we cannot exclude on the basis of gender on all the other classes, but it does not say on the basis of sexual orientation.
That's an observation that is correct.
Okay.
It's another one of those things where
the wording's imperfect.
We may wish it was different.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Would you like?
We're a worldwide denomination, and so that context is not always applicable to our brothers and sisters in different parts outside of the United States. So.
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Donna Graham, and I'm from Winterfield UMC. And my question is, with the regionalizations, is each region, is it like the United States is a region, so they will have one book of discipline, or will East Coast have a book of discipline, West Coast have a book of discipline, we'll have a book of discipline, and then Africa has a book of discipline? How will that work?
No, it won't be that divided up. It will be based on this new structure. And again, the fundamentals of being United Methodist remain the same. There are certain activities that are unique to those particular areas. So it will not be a little of this, a little of that. Did I? Yep. Oh, John, thank you. Bring it on up.
I would just add a little bit of clarity. There will be a general book of discipline which applies to all of us, even after regionalization. Then those matters that can be adapted by the regions, each region will have its regional book of discipline for those things that are adaptable. The United States, as a region, would have one regional book of discipline, subject to the provisions of the general book of discipline, which applies to us all.
Okay, I see. Okay. Maybe one more we have time for.
Hi, I'm Ashley Keithley. I'm from Mosaic UMC in Cyprus. I have a question about ballot 1. So we know that the General Conference will retain the right to decide what is a non-adaptable by regional conference through a 60% majority of vote. My question is, there are going to be things that maybe a regional conference might want to adapt. Would that mean that they would have to get approval from the General Conference first before then voting on it in a regional? Or would the regional propose it and have to then be reviewed by General afterwards to see whether or not that was approved? Thank you.
Sorry for the up and down, but yes, thanks, John.
You're quite observant, and I thank you for digging into the details of it. But those are some of the details that will be worked out. What I predict will happen is that a regional conference may say, we have the authority to adapt this. It may just happen, and that'd be the end of it. Or it could be challenged, and then it would go up to the Judicial Council for a ruling. Is this consistent? Is it adaptable? is it consistent with the general book of discipline? I suspect that's how it will practically happen, but thank you for your question.
Will you join me in thanking our General Conference delegates, our conference secretary, and our bishop for clarifying all this for us? This year, as you may know, has been my first year as conference lay leader, and I've made all the mistakes, and I ask your forgiveness for that. I have also very much enjoyed working, most specifically with the folks of the Board of Laity and our conference team. If you are a member of the Board of Laity, would you stand? And members of the, yes, thank you. I would love to tell you more about them and will be throughout our time together. But some things that I want to emphasize today is the way in which the Board of Laity, which includes our district lay leaders, celebrate one another, encourage one another, celebrate the work of the churches, celebrate and appreciate the work of the laity and the lay staff in our churches and our districts and here at the conference. It's an amazing network of out in front and behind the scenes people who, as Bishop Harvey has emphasized, truly keep things going. When we first met, I'll say it in the larger group later, I'm going to keep saying it, our Board of Laity said two things. We don't want to meet just to meet, and as we talked about Laity Sunday and promoting that, when is it not Laity Sunday? So, yes, it is. And so I'd like to invite one of our board members, Jerry Springfield, to come forward and talk about his church, the work of the laity there, the partnership in ministry with both our clergy and laity. I'm going to hand the microphone over to him. Will you welcome Jerry?
Hope United Methodist Church is a new faith community in our conference. It began in 2022 with a question. At one of the meetings that was being held in the districts, and in our case it was the East District, the old East District, one of our members went to the district superintendent, Dick White, and said, if our church disaffiliates, would you be interested in helping us get a new church start that stays United Methodist? Well, in September of 2022, Woodville United Methodist Church voted to disaffiliate. 13 of us began meeting immediately. We met with conference officials. I believe it was Morris Mathis that came to my house where we held a meeting, and we had about 12 to 15 people there to discuss what we needed to do to get this church going. We didn't have a preacher helping us. We had conference staff helping us. But this was a lay-driven mission, if you will. By December of that year, of 2022, we had incorporated, we had bylaws, we had our pledge drive so that we knew how much money we would have for, and yes, we had a budget. So December 22, we're good to go, and Dick White had found us a preacher. Ernie Turney from this conference, retired minister, was the first pastor for Hope United Methodist Church. We had our first service in the historic Mount Hope United Methodist Church in Chester on January the 8th of 2023. Fast forward to May of this year. We have 35 members. We have a church facility, and yes, we had the building, our sanctuary and education building consecrated, and we're the ones that are meeting in what used to be an air conditioning warehouse. Not an air-conditioned warehouse, but an air conditioning warehouse. In an article I read recently in United Methodist Now, it was October, Laura Buchanan said, and I quote, "While each new church has a pastor and supportive staff persons in place, in our case it's part-time preacher, but that's okay, the laity congregation of the congregations are stepping up to ensure the church has the support it needs to take root and grow." Ladies and gentlemen, I would submit to you that as laity, we have as much, if not more, responsibility than the clergy to advance God's work in this world and to bring His kingdom to this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going to ask Bishop Harvey and Assistant to the Bishop, Ramonica Malone Wardley, if you would come forward. We'd like to pray a blessing over you. If you'll come to the altar, I'm going to ask each of you as you're able to put your love in action, and we will lay our hands on them to the extent that we can, or one another. I'll ask our brave Board of Laity folks and some of my church friends to come forward and come put your hands on our leaders. And I'll meet you down there. Will you rise and come? Come forward as you're able. Don't be shy. Come on in. Come on in. Are you shy? If you can't reach them, put your hands on the person next to you. Loving God, we give you our thanks, and we ask your blessing on our bishop and our entire conference leadership team. As we gather during our time together, unite us in your love, joy, and action. Open us to your word through this leadership team as we worship, grow, and work together to support your ministry in our communities, to meet you in your work in the world. Bless our bishop, bless our leadership, and our conference to serve you each and every day. Amen. you, y'all. I have just a couple more things. I have an announcement, some things for you to think about. We are about to close, and I'll ask our Board of Laity member, Rhonda Miller, to come forward to say our closing prayer. And as she comes up, I have some things that I'm going to invite you to do. You may have noticed on the agenda that our clergy will be entering this room next, and they will have their time together, just as we did. And so I would like to invite you to do a couple of things. You have your guidebook or your guide here. Turn to the very last page. I'm inviting you to waltz across the Texas Annual Conference. We have display tables outside who are eager to meet you, eager to learn from you and your own ministry area and tell you about theirs. So my challenge to you is to get a stamp from each and every one of those folks on that grid. They're going to be here today and they're going to be here tomorrow. So go meet them and go fill out your, whatever this is, your bingo card, your Waltz Across Texas card. The other thing I'm going to invite you to do is our Board of Laity, I may have mentioned, has said that we don't want to meet just to meet, and we haven't. We know that we want to be a learning and teaching group. We are a learning and teaching group. And so they have asked that we have a spot for laity to go and meet one another. That's going to be down on the second floor. There's some tables that are going to be set up. It's Ballroom D on the second floor. Nothing fancy. We're going to have some of us there that are going to be ready to greet you and talk about lay servant ministries, the administrative roles of the church, whether it be finance, chair of the board, SPRC. If you have an interest in either talking to other folks in that regard, or if you have something that you want to learn, come meet us down there. We'll be down there to greet you. And then that is right next to, if you have signed up for the Laity Luncheon, we'll see you there. So thank you for your time, your attention, your love of this church, and we'll meet you around at the display tables as we waltz. I'll hand it over to Rhonda.
As you get ready to leave, we are one in the Spirit and we are one in the Lord, and they will know we are all Christians by our love. You've been given the charge. You've been given the opportunity. Put on your full armor and let's get ready to do what we can do today. There's nothing left that you can't do. Be ready, be willing, and let's charge. You've got this.